Hello everyone. In this video, we will learn how to use extrude in Creo and pattern in Creo and a few other features. It's one of the initial lectures in 3D modeling in Creo, part modeling. This is the prompt that we are using. We want to make a 1 meter long cylindrical shaft with an OD of 200 meter with two keyholes and splines on the other end. So let's just focus on the initial part. 1 meter long cylindrical shaft with an outer diameter of 200 meter. I'll have this checklist on the right and I'll start a new project in Creo over here, a new project, part modeling, and I'll call it shaft. My computer is struggling right now. I'm using the video recording software as well. So things are a bit slow, so please bear with me. All of the dimensions are in So the first thing that we need to do is make sure that we are working in the right units. Go to File, Prepare, Model Properties, and from here, change the system of units to a millimeter based one. Select that unit, click Select. At this stage, this doesn't matter. Okay. And now we should be working in as we can confirm from this. So the shaft should have a diameter of 200 So we'll use the extrude operation. Doesn't matter which plane you select at this stage, but I'll select this stage, this plane as the plane on which I make my cross-sectional area. Then select extrude, which now orients things so that I can look perpendicularly at the sketching plane. I'll use a simple center and point circle. So I'm using the left mouse button. First I selected the center, then a point on its circumference, and now I'll press the center mouse button to confirm my choices. I can see that the figure is enclosed, which is good because an extrusion can only take place if your figure is enclosed. And I'll set the diameter to 200 Click OK. Now it's trying to extrude the part in the perpendicular direction. I want this length to be 1 meter, which is 1000 and that is the base shaft that you need. I think there is a requirement in the notes that you should extrude this symmetrically about the cross section. So from this drop down menu, I'll select symmetric, and now 500 millimeter each is extruded on either side of the cross section. I'm happy with this, so I'll click OK. And this is my first extrusion. I won't be very diligent about this, but you should be. Try to name all of your elements that you create that populate the model tree with its appropriate name. So I'll call this the base shaft. And I was noticing that I can't see the edges very clearly. That's because from this view type, it has selected shading only. If I select shading with edges, I'll be able to see the edges more clearly. That's what I prefer, but you can use whatever you like better. If we look at this requirement, let's read through this. Make a 1 meter long cylindrical shaft, done, with an outer diameter of 200 millimeter, done. So now let's start focusing on the additional requirements. It should have two 200 millimeter long, 50 millimeter square cross-sectional keyways on one end. So over here, I want two keyways. They should be square in cross-section and 200 deep. So let's start by making this keyway. So I'll select this as my sketching surface, where I'll make a cross section and then extrude it inwards into the shaft and use that to remove material. So selecting this plane, select extrude, and play around with the different choices that you have to make rectangles. Yeah, we won't be able to go through all of these sketching options. So I invite you to explore these on your own, but for now we'll be using corner rectangle. I'm zooming in and out using the scroll wheel. Left click over here on the top left corner of the rectangle, and the bottom right corner somewhere over here, and just make a rectangle. Over here, the requirements are that they need to be 50 square. So each side of this rectangle should be equal. It has to be a square. So I'll change these dimensions to 50 and it has to be along the center of the axis. So this dimension should split the square evenly. So it should be 50 divided by 2, 25. In case this dimension was not visible to you, I'll select this and delete it. If this dimension or any other dimension that was not visible to you, you can explicitly create that using this dimension command. Select dimension over here, select the first entity that you want the dimensioning to begin from, hold and press and hold down control. Select the second entity. I want to measure the distance from this edge to the center axis in this case. I've selected these two, and now I want it to tell me what the dimension is. So I'll press the center mouse button and it tells me what the dimension is. Right now I don't want to change it, but if you needed to change it, this is how you can find it and then change it. Another requirement was that half of the square, if you go through the checklist, it's mentioned somewhere, half of the square is inserted in the shaft. So by that, I mean that the distance, this distance should be such that only 50 is sticking out of the circle. So this distance should be the radius of the circle, which is 100 plus 100 plus 25, because we only want half of the square to be out of the shaft. So I've positioned this as needed as well. I'm happy with this sketch. The sketch is enclosed as confirmed by this highlighted pink region. I'll press OK. And now it's trying to extrude that keyway. I'll take it back. I want that keyway to be 200 deep, and I want it to be a keyway, not a key. So I'll remove material. It has removed that material. Things look the way they should. I'm happy with this. I'll click OK, and now I have made the first keyway. I'll call it keyway 1. And the second keyway that I need to make, two 200 millimeter long 50 square keyways. They don't specify the exact requirements, but they have to be on this end. So what we need, but this keyway has to be penetrated. It has to be within the body of the shaft. So what we can do is either use this plane, but the point that I want to use this to emphasize is how to make additional planes. So what we'll do is that we'll select some surface, some straight surface. It could be this edge, it could be this plane, not the edge, it could be this surface, it could be this surface, or you will select this plane. If we select this plane, then we can create additional planes which are at a distance from this plane that we prescribe. So we select this plane, then we go to this option, this datum options within the model tab, and select plane. So now it is asking us that it's trying to create a new plane. That's what we want. We want a new plane. It's asking us at what distance do you want that plane to be from this reference plane. We don't have any strict requirements, so I'll just manually move it over here where it seems reasonable. Let's call it to 15, and I'll create a new plane. Now if you look at your model tree, in addition to the 3 datums that you have in the beginning, the 3 planes, the 3 principal planes, you have a 4th plane, and you can create as many planes as you want for your model. And as we go through the course, you'll realize that you will be needing to make additional datums, not only planes, but axes as well very frequently. So you can rename it as you wish. I'm going to leave it at datum 1 for now. And then I want to extrude this keyway. So for that extrusion, I'll select this plane as the sketching plane for my cross section. Select this plane, select extrude. And now it's showing me things from this edge. Okay, price is not okay. The cross section of the keyway that we've already made, that's on the other side. So what we can do is that we can ask it to show us things from this side. So when we sketch things, it will still be sketched on the same plane, but since we're looking at this end of the shaft, we can see where the existing square is, and that square fulfills all of our requirements. It's 50 millimeter long and wide, and it's appropriately distanced from the center. So what we'll do is that we'll use this outline to make the sketch of to make the sketch for our second keyway. What you could do is that you could just make lines along the existing keyway, and if you see over here, those lines are being made on that plane. I want to return to the old view, so I'll just click view normal, and it's showing me things perpendicular to that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using this technique, and you should use this in many cases. It gets the job done. But I want to show you this other functionality that we have in sketching, which is known as project. I think that's this button. Yeah, so we'll try to make this sketch for our second keyword using the project option. Thing that you might have noticed over here is that when I press the center mouse button, this area is not highlighted pink, and that is because this is not an enclosed figure, and Creo is confirming that for us. It's not an enclosed figure, not only by not highlighting this, but also pointing out where the open edges are. These red squares tell us where the open edges are. So if you wanted to make it into a closed figure, you could join those edges, press the center mouse button twice, first to stop making additional lines, and second to close this figure, and you'll see that it does get highlighted pink. So it is indeed a closed figure. Had it not been a closed figure, so I'll try to remove this line. So I'll select the if this select button is not selected already, then choose this, and you can use that to pick any entity that you've created. I'll select this line and press delete, so it deletes that, and now it's no longer highlighted. And if you try extruding this open cross section, you'll get an error. You won't be able to extrude it because it doesn't know what cross section it needs to add or remove material along. So we could create an arc over here and then extrude that to make our keyway, but what I'll do is that I'll get rid of these, and you can get rid of those one by one or collectively by selecting them and pressing delete, or you could use this option, which is delete segment. Using the left mouse button, all the entities through which you drag this, those will be deleted, all the segments, and now those sketches have been deleted. What I'll do now is to use the project command to make this cross section. So over here, if you not this project command, if you select this, what it does is that it uses features which are present at other planes and makes a projection of them, casts a shadow of them on that plane which you've selected. Here I'll select this edge, this the first edge, press down control, the second edge, third edge, fourth edge, and then I'll press the center mouse button. So now if you look at the sketching plane where you're working, sketches have been created along these lines which have been projected from the edges that you selected which were on a different plane. So that's a very convenient way of using projections of existing features on the plane where you're working to create sketches. So what we have over here, we have this cross section sketched onto this new plane that we made. I'm happy with this cross section. I'll select OK. And now it automatically detects that because I'm making an extrusion which is wholly or mostly within an existing feature, you most probably want to remove material. It already has enabled remove material for me. And when I pull it down over here, it changes the length of the extrusion, the negative extrusion. I want this keyway to be 200 millimeter long. I've selected that, and this is my second keyway. I'll click OK. I can rename this keyway 2, and now I'll know what this extrusion means. So we've created 2 keyways, and through this exercise you've learned how to make new planes. There are different planes that you can make, but so far we've only learned how to make planes which are parallel to existing planes. We'll learn how to make planes at an angle as well. And we've learned how to use the project feature in sketching. Now what we need to make are these splines. So the requirements of the splines are, let's take a look, 15 200 millimeter deep circular splines, and the cross section should be a circle of 20 millimeter diameter, sorry. So we'll select this as our extrusion plane. We'll start making an extrusion over here, and we'll choose center and point type circle. And you can select any point on the periphery, make a circle, center mouse button, center mouse click, that selects it and shows you the dimensions. And from here we can change the diameter to 20 mm. That's what we want for one spline. When you click OK, it tries to extrude that. We want to extrude it within the length of the shaft. So we'll reverse directions from here. You can do it from using this handle or that arrow that shows up, or you could do the same thing from this toggle switch as well. We want to remove material, enable that option, and we want this to be 200 mm deep. Select OK. So this is one groove, one axial groove that we've made. And what we will do in order to make 15 of these grooves so that it looks like a keyway is that we'll select this feature, which we'll call spline 1, and pattern it axially around the surface of the shaft. So for that, within model, you will no longer in extrude, within model, we'll use this feature pattern. Before you can use pattern, you need to tell Creo what do you want to pattern. I'll select this extruded feature that I want to pattern. I'll select pattern. And now a new tab opens up, which says, not surprisingly, pattern. There are different kinds of patterns that you can make. You could make patterns which are along a line, which are linear, or you could make patterns which rotate about an axis. And there are different other types as well where you can make grids and whatnot. What we need right now is a pattern which creates identical entities around an axis. So from here, from the pattern type, select axis, and we'll select this central. Then you have to tell Creo what axis do you want the pattern to be around. We'll select this central axis, and now it's trying to create 4 identical features. And these markers, these yellow circles with square centers, that's Creo's way of telling us where those 4 additional features would be created. So instead of 4, what we want is 15 features to be created. So what you could do is either find the angle that would have to exist between 15 entities which are equally distributed across 360 degrees. So 360 divided by 15, and then tell Creo that the total number of features that you want are 15. So it will create 15 entities, identical entities along the surface of the shaft about the axis that you selected. And this is perfectly acceptable, but there's an easier way of doing this, which I'll show you in a minute. But before we do that, let's click OK over here to see what happens. So it chose that initial spline and patterned it around the axis to create 15 identical entities, and this is what we wanted to make. But to make things simpler, let's delete this pattern. Doing that also deleted the initial feature. So I'll redefine the pattern. So let's just say you don't want to calculate this. I'll put this angle at a random value, 10 degrees. So now the 15 features are not evenly distributed about 360 degrees. But if you select angular extent from here, it will do that. It will evenly distribute these 15 or whatever number you want, 20 entities about the central axis. If you don't worry about, if you don't care about the distribution and you want it to be uniform, then just enter the number of entities that you need, 15 in our case, and then enable angular extent, and it would evenly distribute those 15 entities about this many degrees, which in our case are 360, which is the entire circle. Click OK, and you have the 15 splines that you needed. So this is what you needed to do in this task. Take a look through the checklist that has been provided in the additional material. I might have missed some intermediate steps as explicitly stated in the list. You try following those as well, but we did what we needed to do. Now let's make sure that we properly save this project. It's simple, just Control S, and that saves your project. Select OK from here, and your project will be saved. If you want to save a picture of the shaft that you create, which is one of the things that you need to do as per the checklist, get rid of the additional details, the background details which you don't need. So I'll unselect all the datum so that my image is not crowded. I'll orient the shaft as I want it to be pictured. That looks like a reasonable orientation and zoom level to me. And then go to File, Save As, Save a Copy, and then select some graphical format over here. You could select PDF, JPEG or PNG or EPS, TIFF. There are two PNGs as you wish. I'll select JPEG for now. Select OK. I'm happy with the default settings. Then if you go to your working directory, which let me just quickly open, is over here. It has created a new JPEG file. This one, it just made that, and the name is the same as the object name. You can rename it as well. So that's one way of saving relatively high resolution pictures where it's better than just using the snipping tool. Another thing that you would notice in your working directory is that every time you save the project that you're working on, it saves a new entry. It hasn't done that over here for some reason, but it actually has. You have the shaft.prt1, shaft.prt2, which gets messy. So to avoid that, to clean up things, once you're happy with the version that you want to save, go to Manage File and select Delete all old versions. And then that would delete older versions of the shaft file or whatever file you're working with, because sometimes it ends up creating 5 or 10 different versions of the same project, and that gets messy. So this is one way of cleaning things tidy. You save your project, you save the picture, so that's everything that you needed to do for this project. I'll end the video over here. Thank you for watching.